Working on Ricky B, the rock and roll rat today as I continue getting set up. Come on, laptop. Anyways, so when we last left Ricky, we were he was just getting to work at the recording studio that he works at, and that was weird. Uh, got my shot glass full of ink, and it's kind of strange that it's just capillary actioning up the sides. But okay, well, hopefully that's not a problem. Anyways, so what are we doing? Um, this is page 14. I know I've got multiple numbers because pagination has changed throughout this project, but we are, excuse me, carrying on. And I also want to say right at the beginning of this show, and I'll make a note to remind myself to say it again after. At the end, there won't be a Friday stream next week because I have an event I have to go to. So stick that there. But anyways, so but there will be, or there's supposed to be a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday stream. So we finally meet Big Mike. I don't think we've met him before. We talked about him, and that is Ricky's jackass boss. So, just as a recap, Ricky works in a recording studio. Big Mike is the record producer who owns the place, runs it, and so Ricky had brought in some pizza, I believe was the last thing, and that's where we went. I think the last week, I believe what I did last was the ad spread, wasn't it? Or there was an ad for Big Mike's clients. So let's get right into it. And Big Mike is complaining about his boss. Hello there, Sheila. How's it going? So let's go here. I will outline this sort of narration. Although, actually, no, I won't. Most of this book, I haven't been like separating out the narration bit. Um, I may end up afterwards kind of going back through and going like, maybe I should make things clearer. But anyways, that's Ricky narrating, not so much his boss. So, and what's the boss complaining about? Well, Mrs. Mike, as we call her, his current wife, is you know, I don't want to call her a gold digger, but I think we know how that song goes. Anyways, she's complaining that the yacht that Big Mike has, or the motorboat that he has, is nowhere near big enough for her liking, and they need to buy a bigger one. So, and then we'll proceed from there. Let's see if we manage to get um, more than 2 pages done today. It would be nice, but I'm kind of expecting to just get the 2 done. So, I'll do the X with a bigger nib afterwards. I always kind of like to start with the thinner nibs and go from there. It's always easier to make your lines fatter, but making them thinner afterwards, well, then you got to deal with Photoshop. So there you have it. And all these characters are rat people, so we will be drawing whiskers and whatnot. Mm, you know. And this graphic novel, Ricky B Goes to Sea, it's actually from wasn't the first comic that because I was doing like a little one page, one off comics, but it was the first short story that I wrote about Ricky in 2023. So it's been a project in the works for a little while. Uh, there's a whole lot of sidetracking for sure. So, what size boat does Mike's wife think is the right size? Well, it kind of looks more like a cruise ship to me than a yacht, but I guess that's a matter of interpretation, right? Put this on the other side. So I keep feeling like I'm going to knock it there. It's one thing that's kind of nice. The old school Bottles of India ink, they used to have like the wider base. Although Speedball, now it's just like a vertical tub. Um, but this is probably the only time in the book that we see Big Mike's wife smiling. There- She's not a cheerful lady. But Add some water detail as well. Now let's switch to a fatter nib to put some detailing on the water and outline Big Mike's. Well, I don't know if it's detailing so much as obliterating detailing, but in doing that, we end up kind of detailing the water. And then we'll outline his thought bubble. Which actually, now that I think of it, it should be a speech bubble because he's describing this. So I'll just smooth things out a little bit. Yes. Cross out the tiny boat, which isn't actually a tiny boat, but by Mrs. Mike's standards, it's a tiny boat. This was part of the non-photo blue drawing that we won't be needing. This will be scanned in black and white eventually, and all the blue should disappear. If all else fails and I get a little bit of a line there, I can always tidy it up in Photoshop. So I'm not too worried. Big Mike is a huge fan of Hawaiian shirts, so gotta make sure we draw him in his favorite one, or one of his ones. I don't know which one's his favorite. I know for myself as the cartoonist, it's a lot easier to draw the palm tree one. And Big Mike almost is a bit of a slob, so let's give him a couple ketchup stains on his tank top. Nice art you got there. Thank you, Arson. It's very kind of you. Big Mike some hair on his forearms as well. course, the life preserver would be fatter or smaller or whatever, but, we kind of want the proportions there because that's what works with the text, so and maybe the rat people do something a bit different when it comes to, life preserver size. So the reference to, what God said, Ricky is the narrator here, and according to him, one Monday morning, God spoke to him and told him to go forth unto the sea and grab that big shiny rock from the shipwreck movie because that will impress his girlfriend. Now, Ricky's not a liar, but he is a misunderstander. So this is probably not at all what he was told. But there we go. And he figures he has to build a submarine. So suddenly he's remembered this thanks to the discussion of the yacht. Is with this nib today. When I do scan all this and muck with it in Photoshop, I will probably recenter the lettering, but I'm not going to worry about that today. Thank you, Chad or Tanner. Thanks. back to that nib in a moment. Let's do the middle line there between the two frames. I'll have to look at some of the other pages that I've inked that have dialogue because part of me thinks there should be um, speech bubbles, but then I'm trying to remember for consistency's sake what I did elsewhere. So we will leave it at this point. I'm sure when the whole book's done, I'll have some notes about stuff I want to tweak. I'll be going through and making a bunch of changes on one last stream or something along those lines, but that's in the future. So, yeah, I'll finish drawing Big Mike's face before I put the border on the thought bubble because otherwise I will smudge it for sure. So, this page is, I think we probably will get through 3 pages because this one is, could be done in a couple minutes, 5 minutes or so. So, you should definitely be able to get 3 done. I would presume that if Ricky did join the Navy, they probably wouldn't let him keep his spiky Sid Vicious hair, but what does Big Mike know about the Navy, anyways? Yeah, good. With Big Mike being a rat, we do need to kind of show where his whiskers come in. Obviously, we don't see it on that side, but with these dip pens, I'm always kind of constantly watching to see if there's like a bulge of ink underneath because a couple times on the Wednesday stream when I was working on Zombie the Destroyer, I saw that and I ignored it, and then boom, I got a big black dot that I'll have to Photoshop out later. So, gotta pay attention. On the other hand, of course, if you don't have enough ink, then you're constantly re-dipping. Excuse me. Well, last week I missed the stream because I had a bit of a sinus cold and sore throat, and I'm better, except every so often I have the urge to cough, but oh well. In theory, we should see Big Mike's tail, except if he's pissed off, maybe it's down drooping. It's one of those things where I've always been kind of going like, well, if they had tails, they'd probably use them kind of expressively. So if he's pissed off, I assume his tail's drooping down. That's why we don't see it kind of poking up over his shoulder. But all right, page one of the day is done. Now let's move on to the next. At the very end of the stream, I always kind of take whatever I've done and show it off again, but we will just set this off to the side for now. Sitting on top of my laptop. So, so now we've got Ricky's having to react to this. He doesn't want to explain to Big Mike why he asked about submarines. He explains why. Doesn't want to tell him that God spoke to him. Big Mike wouldn't believe him. Plus, Big Mike's kind of a greedy bastard. And I don't want him to get any ideas about scoring that big rock for his own baby. or even his wife. So I just said it would be cool to see the big shipwreck. And then we've got Big Mike laughing, then asking, "Is your girlfriend watching that stupid movie?" And Ricky kind of gets all shifty eyed and says, Yeah. See, on here, if I've just got one character in the frame, then I'm not putting in speech bubbles because it's kind of assumed the words coming from there, except now that I think of it, here, obviously, it's not Mrs. Mike Hussein or even his wife. So I'll kind of look through towards the end of the book and make a decision. And then if I'm going to do a little box around, I think that's kind of the more traditional comics thing is narration is in a box and then words are in a speech bubble. And yeah, that's the problem for future Pira. It's got a little bit of flop sweat going on here. It's funny. These days when I draw Ricky, his eyes are I mean, he's still kind of got the beady-eyed look, but he's not quite as beady-eyed. And his hair is also wider, but most of the blue lines for this book were actually drawn in 2023, and then it's kind of been a back burner project until I mean, I did a couple pages here and there, but it's really been since January when I've been like, "Okay, I wanna get this thing done. This is getting ridiculous." So I just find those whiskers a little more awkward to do because my natural thing is to go left to right. Um, if I did that, then I risk, letting them fly a little too far into his face, but, feels weird to ink the other way. I think I may have to switch nibs here as well pretty quick. At a certain point, sometimes these nibs get a little gunked. So that we will finish off Ricky here. Um, and one of the other things I always have to remember is back in 2023, I used to draw Ricky with a hairy chest, but he's a pretty young guy, so nowadays I don't. So I have to kind of ignore those blue lines. Just kind of give them a little definition between the pecs. What I always do with this jacket is I tend to, scribble in with the thinner, nib so that when I come in with the fatter one, there's some areas like there where it's not going to be fully covered, and then that shows, and it's kind of a texture thing, so one of these days, should do a couple pages from, this book or another book where I'm working with the dip pen. Not have a mic well, I wouldn't do this on live stream, but not have a mic on myself, but aim a microphone right at that so you get that scritchy, scratchy sound. Put it up on an ASMR channel or something like that. Best of my knowledge, there aren't any ASMR channels where the video is all about the adventures of a drunk rat who works in a recording punk rock recording studio, but, it could be that there's no market for such a thing, or it just could be that nobody's thought of it yet. Only one way to find out, eh? We'll do the division between the 2, side-by-side frames at the end when I do that one. So, what I might end up doing, um, when it comes to outlining the narration, because I have not drawn it like that, that may be something I do in Photoshop where I put, like, a white box behind to kinda knock things out, and anyways, that's a problem for future Pura. One of those things where I really obviously didn't think of it when I was drawing it, but now it is something where I do kind of pay attention to that. Um, although when I'm on Wednesday nights when I'm inking the Zombie the Destroyer stuff, like that's a comic that I actually drew in 2013, and that narration absolutely has a box around it. So maybe that I used to do that and then I just got lazy or forgot. So does it say fix fingers? Make sure necklace matches. Well, whatever. So I'm not gonna draw the, thought bubble around here, um, because of that concern with the narration boxes. We will just draw Mike and, his baby. And you see here, we do have the tail. There, Ricky's tail obviously is drooped down. I know, I know. Music industry guy, particularly a record producer who's cheating on his wife, clearly that is an absolute work of fiction. Absolutely, that never, ever, ever happens. assume this one has a different stain on it. I don't think Big Mike says it in this particular book, but in one of the Ricky short stories, Big Mike is quoted by saying, "The only thing that matters is how fat your wallet is." So he feels perfectly fine being as much of a slob as he wants to be. Doesn't affect his activities at all. I think in the blue line, it does show him wearing a wedding ring, but we're just going to assume it's in his pocket at this point. So now we divide up the frames, panels, I guess. Proper term would be panels. I always think of them more as frames, but whatever. a note here about making sure the necklace is matched, so why don't we take a moment to do that? And we see that they don't. So I will quickly add some diamonds around the outside. Bit of a very vulgar joke here. But we do have Ricky here copping a feel. Although actually, I think in reality, Ricky wouldn't do that more because his girlfriend would kill him. he's pretty loyal to baby, but, it was too funny of a gag to resist, so switch to a different pen. Use a different, nib in a moment, but for now, we're gonna finish this little area off with a glass pen, if it will cooperate. This one may not today. Ah, I do find that the, glass pens, wanted to they either write beautifully or not at all, and today is a not at all. So, hang on. So yeah, it's an hour into the stream, the planned length of it, and we are 1.5 pages done, so I think we are definitely on track for getting the third one finished. Which is good progress. I think the last couple of streams I've done 3 in a row, 3 in a show. So that's good for making the progress. Certainly helps, when I've missed shows, like last week when I was sick, or next week I have an event I have to go to. Um, so there won't be a stream next week. 'Cause I'm pretty sure this nib is also being frustrating. Anyways, by the time I get back from the event, it's probably a little late. I have been thinking lately, lately I've been getting up at 6 in the morning and getting my stuff done and all that, but because I'm able to set my own schedule, part of me is highly tempted to kind of go back to the schedule I used to have back in my own music biz days, which the music industry tends to be fairly nocturnal. Um, but I used to have an industrial noise project called Maclu, MAQLU, and in those days I had a jam space at Main and Second in Vancouver, and I would show up there somewhere between 2 and 3 in the afternoon, and I would work until through 2, 3, 4 in the morning. Um, I did get a lot of stuff done. So it's a possibility, we'll see. I mean, there's some downsides to that schedule too. It's not the healthiest thing. Although plenty of people who do night shift sort of said, "Well, if you eat properly, exercise, still get some daylight in the afternoon and whatnot, you can kind of manage it all right, but we'll see. That was close. Almost knocked over my ink. a whole collection of different nibs in this little container I made. So this is supposed to be not in this book, but Miles, who I do a book about on Mondays. This is Miles's dad, Larry. So, and his ears are the perfect size for holding nibs. And I go back to this nib. This is like the ongoing battle of one nib back to the other, back to the other. But And like a little indication that that is hair, not. Bit more black than I wanted there, but it's good to get a nice deep shadow also in Ricky's hair. All right. So that is two done. And like I said earlier, I will go over and review at the very end all of the drawings, all three of them now. So I'll set that aside. And page three. Well, three for tonight. This is actually page 16 of the story. And page 28 of the book because we have some pre-story stuff. So there's Big Mike. And we see that he lets his belly hang over the top of his. I have to remember those are actually cargo shorts. Um, as he kind of towers over Ricky. Ricky might actually be taller, but Ricky's sitting down. Big Mike stands up when he's going to yell at people. So here we have both Ricky and Big Mike talking in the same um, frame. So we actually have honest to God speech bubbles. Now, this guy, that's probably intern Dave. His face is going to disappear though. When I'll draw it, but I'm going to have that fat line between the frames. So between the panels, I guess. So, anyways, I got one of the other guys sitting in a chair here. That's probably Jeff. And we will meet Jeff later in the story. Actually, I think the pages that had Jeff on, I think I've already inked. Um, there may be shorts somewhere else on my channel from like a year or two ago that had those, but anyways, when I do come up against something that I've previously inked, I'll just hold it out. But anyway, so you just get a random leg. trying to remember that these guys are rats, so they do have claws. It'll be one of the, like, continuity things that at the end I go through and go like, "Okay, who did I forget to give claws to?" Add them back in. And I see Big Mike's using the royal "we" there. "We don't pay you." It's Big Mike's studio, so it should be, "I don't pay you." Oh, well. Yeah, gotta try Dave. Although I think in this book he's not actually named as Dave, but these details of the chair will kind of vanish, but oh well. I think this is the one where no matter how I drew Ricky's hand, it all looked weird. So I was like, whatever, we're just gonna go with one option if whatever. It is kind of a bit of a weird angle. Anyways. And by the way, if you're looking at Ricky's boss, Big Mike, and his knee-high socks and wondering if he's got sandals on, you bet your ass he does. He is absolutely a socks with sandals guy. Let's make the background a bit more interesting. I should have done this first, but we'll put some amplifiers back here. Maybe I'll just put the 1 amp. But what I'll do is do a little bit of shading. All right. Now on to the next, which is a portrait of Big Mike over here. I'm gonna run a little bit over time, but that's fine. The cross one after I finish this. So it's just one line. I actually have to add a bit more ink. In case you're wondering what I'm using Demco Waterproof India ink. So someone was asking me about that the other day. Why is it called India ink? In English, it's just called India ink because the English had a lot of trade with India, and that was one of the things they got from them. Before that, Europeans used, I think it was called Oxgall ink, which also, like the black is just carbon black, like lamp black, which was used in Europe as well, but with a different. There goes my phone. I don't know if that picks up on mic. Um, but with a different binder. This is shellac, and it's basically in this form. It's been used in Asia for, a couple thousand years. I think about 2,000 years or so, 2,500 in India, and like almost 5,000 years in China. Sometimes it's also called China ink. So, anyways, that's probably neither here nor there. But in case anyone was wondering, that is what I learned on Wikipedia. Oh yeah, Big Mike's tail. Where would it be? Now let's have it kind of coming in here. In the home stretch. So This nib. At a certain point, the nibs kind of start giving hassles. Probably overdue to run them all through my ultrasonic cleaner again, too. I think I'll probably just use the fatter nib and make that really dark. But, let's get Ricky drawn at least. One more drying, then we are done for the night. All right. There we have it for the night. Now let's have one more look at the stuff we have drawn today. So this, of course, is page 3. Set that aside for the moment. We have page 1 there. Well, it's page 14 of the book, but page 1 inked today, where we first meet Big Mike, find out about his wife, and Ricky's reminded that he wanted to build a submarine and doesn't know how, so he asks Big Mike. That was a mistake. And then got our page 2, wherein, let's move that over there. So yeah, page 2, where Ricky's worried about decides not to be honest with Big Mike because he figures he'll get made fun of or whatever, or that Big Mike will go and steal the big shiny rock from the shipwreck and either give it to his side piece or to his missus. So he just says he'd like to go see the big shipwreck, and that makes Big Mike laugh and brings up the issue of, quote, that stupid movie. And then Big Mike tells Ricky that the Russians take suckers down there, which is true. Or it used to be true. I don't know that they do it anymore, but they do have research subs that will go to the Titanic, and they used to take people down there. Very, very expensive, of course. Anyways, Big Mike points out that Ricky doesn't make enough to afford that. And, sorry, my stupid phone making noises again. Anyway, so then we have this little argument where Ricky kind of would like to tell Big Mike to F off, but of course, Big Mike is the boss, so Ricky can't do that. He just seethes. But we find out this bit about the cousin who builds hot rods. We will meet him later. Ricky wants to build his own sub. So, and Big Mike tells him to just watch the stupid movie, which, Big Mike is a dick, but, if you're going to build your own submarine to go to the Titanic, well, we know from Ocean Gate that you really should just stay home and watch the stupid movie. So, anyways, those are our 3 pages that we did this week. Now, moving forward, next week, as I think I mentioned earlier a couple times, I have an event that I have to go to, so no Friday stream next week. So we'll be back with Ricky in a couple weeks, but I am streaming next week just on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So Monday we'll be doing a couple pages, like a one spread, 2 pages for Ricky's girlfriend's cousin, Miles, the book that I'm doing about Miles. And that will be the R spread. And then Tuesday, we are working on the Noah's Archipelago calendar. Last week, we only got 1 page done, so I don't know. We'll get at least 1 page done on Tuesday. It would be nice if we could get 2 pages done, but we'll kind of play that by ear. The couple pages I've done so far have both been, an hour and a half, almost 2 hours. So once you add color in, it takes longer. Anyways, then on Wednesday, we will be inking a couple more pages from the Salmo the Destroyer reboot, which will go into I still want to call it an anthology, but it's called a treasury, the collection of the Zalmo comics. And then on Thursday, we will be working on Noah again for a couple more pages from the Noah's Archipelago coloring book. So, actually, one other thing that I almost forgot. I am going to be starting, I don't know if I'll do it every week, but Sunday at noon, 12 p.m. Pacific, I am going to be just doing some brainstorming sketches, playing around in my sketchbook, kind of shooting the shit and whatnot. And so we'll do that because I used to do those on Tuesday nights and they're kind of fun. So I miss it. I figured, well, on Sunday I kind of end up sitting around not really doing much. So why don't I stream and we'll see how it goes. I don't know if it's going to be every week or just some Sundays or whatever. But yes, so actually the next stream is the day after tomorrow, Sunday at noon Pacific for a kind of a real chill sketchbook doodle brainstorming kind of a stream. And then, like I said, the 4 streams next week. And Ricky, well, we will see Ricky in a couple of weeks. I guess, I think that would be May 2nd, I think, is the next Ricky stream, if I'm not mistaken. So, week after next, not next week. So, thanks for watching. Hope you've enjoyed this stream, and we will see you in a couple weeks for Ricky or the day after tomorrow for other streaming. So bye for now, and bye, Ricky. See you in a couple weeks.